Everyone likes a little sub-genre in their horror movies, and a sub-genre that I'm very interested in is horror movies that are set in the snow at winter time. So I'm going to tell you my top 10 horror movies that are set in the snow at winter time.
Everybody's a suspect!
Coming to get you, Bobber.
Wolfman's got Nards!
The idea for this video came to me from one of my patrons, David James Venter. He asked me to do a movie review for 30 Days of Night, and I loved the movie. It's set in the snow and set at winter time, and I thought, why haven't we seen a lot of these horror movies that are set in the snow and set in winter? And we do have quite a few, so I've narrowed it down to 10 horror movies or horror themed movies that have got snow involved and they're in the winter. Now sometimes that doesn't mean that it's going to be set at Christmas, and I don't think any of my top 10 are Christmas themed, but because it is Christmas, it is December, it's snowing in some places, I'm going to delve into my top 10 horror movies that are set at winter with snow. And at number 10 is Blood Tracks from 1985. This is probably very unknown to most people. It's about this rock band that go into this snow place and to make a music video, and when they're there to make the music video there's an avalanche and they all get stuck in this little isolated area. Most of these movies are all isolated, but it's one of those mid-80s cannibalistic horror movies that I always loved, and there's a family living there who are killing off these rock band members as well as some of the groupies and the producers of this rock band music video. It's one of those horror movies you don't take too seriously. It's probably bad for most of you guys. I'm an 80s cheesy horror movie fan, and anytime I watch this I know it's bad, but I can't help but watch it, and it reminds me of those mid-80s cannibalistic horror movies like Just Before Dawn, even though there's no cannibals. Just Before Dawn and The Final Terror, those mid-80s horror movies that are set in isolated locations, and this is one of the great ones for me. And at number 9 is 2007's Wind Chill. This is a really dark and quite creepy horror movie. Emily Blunt's in this one. Again, not a lot of people have maybe seen this one, but it's one of those sleeper ones that just pass you by. If you haven't heard of it until now, you probably have never seen it before or seen it advertised at all. And it's about these two college students that are trapped in a car in the cold in the middle of nowhere, and they break down in a place where a lot of people have died, and these ghosts are attacking them around this car. I don't want to give anything away, but if you haven't seen it, I definitely recommend it. Like many of the winter snow horror movies, it's very isolated. There's not a big cast, there's only a couple of people in the movie, and I think having only 2 or 3 people in this movie helps it a lot. And at number 8 is The Children from 2008. I can't remember if this is a remake or not. I'm assuming it might be a remake, but this is a British version of The Children anyway, and this one is set at Christmas, and it's got the snow, it's got the winter, and it's one of those isolated horror movies again, and you've got these families that have got the children over celebrating the holidays, and the children start attacking the adults, and that's what's really creepy about this one, because you don't expect it if you don't know what the movie's about, but you don't expect what you see in the film. You don't expect to see children do what they do, and in a lot of horror movies that involve children, they cut out a lot, whereas in this one they don't cut out much at all. They don't leave much to the imagination either. So if you do like shock horror movies, I think The Children is a definite watch for anyone. And at number 7 is The Thing from 2011, the prequel to the original The Thing. Some people hate this one, and I can understand why you hate it. People love practical effects. There's not much practical effects in this, it's all CGI, and it's basically the exact same storyline as we saw in the original The Thing from 1982, but they do change a couple of things up, and then they reveal at the end of the movie that it's not an actual remake, it's a prequel. Despite its flaws and its obvious inferiority to the 1982 The Thing, I still think this one is a really well-made movie, well-acted movie as well. Some great cast members. You've got Mary Elizabeth Winstead and Joel Edgerton, two of the best characters in the movie. So I think that if you forget about what happened in The Thing from 1982, forget about how good that movie is, I think you would really enjoy the 2011 movie. And at number 6 is Let Me In from 2010. Now, first off, I've not seen the original Swedish version, Let the Right One In. So I went into this movie not comparing it to anything, and I thought it was a really well made movie. It was a very artistic vampire style movie. I don't know if that's what the original was like. If it was, then great. I'll probably check that out eventually. But this one is a vampire movie. It's got that white snow with the red blood. I think it's very artistic. If you like your artistic horror movies, I think Let Me In will be a really good one. But if you do like your vampire movies that are quite quiet, then again, I definitely recommend this one. And then number 5 is 30 Days of Night from 2007. As I mentioned, I've done a movie review for that, so there's not much else to tell you. But the reason this is high up on the list is similar to Let Me In. It's got that artistic look about it, even if they didn't go for the artistic approach. You've got the white snow, you've got the red blood, you've got the isolation, you've got the vampires in the middle of nowhere, and to top it off, you've got vampires in a place where there's 30 days of night. And I still think that this is one of the best vampire movies. And then number 4 is Frozen from 2010. No, not the Disney movie, but Adam Green's Frozen. It's got 3 actors in this. Well, there's a couple of actors at the beginning, but 3 of the main characters in this were all fantastic. It's about these 3 people who are stuck up on one of those ski lifts for the weekend. Everybody goes away and it's just those 3 that are left. They're very high up in the air, so they can't really get down. And there's so many things that can go wrong and do go wrong in this film. But this is one of these movies that, again, not a lot happens, but I was on the edge of my seat from the beginning to the very end of this film. You've got wolves involved, you've got freezing to death, you've got frostbite, you've got heights, you've got everything in this little small movie. And I think for what they do with this movie, for the length of time that this is on, it's one of the most memorable horror movies that are set in the snow. And then number 3 is The Shining from 1980. There's not much to say about The Shining because everybody knows about The Shining. I actually only seen this movie for the first time just over a year ago, so it's still fresh in my mind. I still really like this whole isolated movie. I love the snow scenes in this film, but what I do like about it, taken away from the snow, is the fact that they're in this big massive hotel and it's just a few of them that are there, so that's creepy in itself. But then you get near the end with the maze, with all the snow. It's fantastic. One of the best isolated horror movies I've ever seen. And then number 2 is Misery from 1990. I actually done a review for this just less than a month ago and I loved it. I've seen Misery many times, and one thing I do like about Misery is what's different from this as to most of the movies on this list. They utilise the daylight more in Misery than the darkness. There's not a lot of nighttime scenes in this. It's mostly all set in the day and you get to see the snow and again the isolation. I think the camera angles help with this movie because we're stuck in a house most of the movie. We don't know how isolated Paul is, so you get some good aerial shots when someone's in a helicopter just to see how far away he is from reality, and it's just him and Kathy Bates that are there. So yeah, it's very isolated. I'm saying the word isolated quite a lot in these movies, and that's what's connecting the snow in the winter to horror movies, isolation, and I think Misery does that perfectly. And at number 1 is The Thing from 1982. You probably guessed that when you seen that I had The Thing from 2011 on the list, but yeah, again, I don't think I have any negatives that I could say about The Thing from 1982. I haven't done a full movie review for this movie yet. John Carpenter's one of my favourite horror directors of all time, so I will probably do a movie review for this eventually, but the reason this is my number 1 is because Kurt Russell's in it. It was directed by John Carpenter. It takes the isolation up a notch. Not only have you got this great isolated setting, you've got amazing practical effects. This is 1982 and it's still one of the best practical effects movies that I've ever seen. And even when you watch it today, a movie that's filmed in 1982, sometimes you can think, oh, it's a little dated, but it's not. You watch this today thinking, wow, that is an amazing movie. Get that movie in 4K and it looks like a brand new movie. So that's my top 10 horror movies set in the snow at winter time. I know it's very specific, but it has to be specific for this type of video. So my question to you guys is, do you agree with any of my top 10, or is there another horror movie set in the snow at winter time that I didn't mention? As always guys, leave your comments down below. Let me know your top 10. If you don't have a top 10, because it is quite hard, give me your top 2 or 3 at least. As always guys, thanks a lot for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I'll see you soon. Bye bye.